Hello there, Pash Sharma this side, bringing you best chess games going all around the world. Do take time to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, then do press the bell icon for future notifications. And if you like my work, then do consider supporting me on Patreon and PayPal. You will find the links in the description because your support is my motivation, which keeps me going. So, the new tournament has begun, the Chessable Masters, and it is divided into two groups, Group A and Group B. So Group A matches took place today, and I would be covering my favorite three games from the from day one. So without further ado, I would like to start with the first game, which was between Vladislav Artemiev and Pentala Harikrishna. Artemiev was white and Harikrishna was black. And I should mention that before I commence my analysis of any game or any particular moment in a game, I would be giving you timestamps in the description box so that you can watch the game of your wish on clicking on those, and don't get confused about which game is going on. So let's have a look. The first game begins now. Artemiev is white, Harikrishna is black. So Artemiev opens with one knight f3, and we transpose into this symmetrical English with this d4 move, cd4, knight d4, e6. So this is somewhat kind of transposing into some queen's gambit positions, but after e4 it somewhat transposes into Sicilian position with this c4 Maroczy bind, and this rather looks like Carlsen variation, or we should say Sicilian Taimano variation, where you might even see knight b5, although it's black to move at the moment. Might see striking into the center as well. So bishop b4 by Pentala, knight captures, b captures, and then bishop d3, defending the pawn because the bishop was pinning the knight against the king. e5, both sides castle, and h3. So h3 is a provisional move, not only to give safe square for king, but also to prevent either knight g4 or bishop g4, which can be annoying, especially when bishop e3 is played. So d6, bishop e3, there we go. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and it looks like this pawn structure is somewhat ruined, but since this pawn is controlling a key square on d4 and this pawn is also controlling this square on d5, I think the position is still fine for white, and there aren't any weaknesses to exploit. Probably as I already mentioned, this pawn can be a weakness, these isolated double pawns, but still there aren't any attacks going on, so it's already fine. So knight d7, maybe c5 to close this structure would have been a better option, but knight d7 probably would have been played to play f5 in future, or to bring this knight to b6. Anyway, we will look. Queen d2, he wanted to play knight c5. So bishop comes back to c2, the bishop was hit by the knight. White wants to retain its both bishops. Bishop comes to e6, and now rook f to d1, just piling more pressure on this semi-open file against this queen, and also on this d6 pawn. So if bishop takes c4, then queen takes, and after rook takes, this pawn would hang, and so will be the knight, and this knight won't be able to defend the pawn. So instead, after rook fd1, Harikrishna plays knight b7, and it was quite evident that now he wants to play c5 because he's realized that he committed a mistake by playing knight d7 first and neglecting the c5 move. But Artemiev plays c5 himself, not only giving up this pawn but also doubling black's pawns, and in this position black's pawns would be more weak because he doesn't have the bishop pair, instead has this passive knight protecting the pawn on d6, although it will capture and remove the subsequent weakness, but still this b7 knight will be a potential target because in this position here he would be running very low on squares. So let's have a look how the moves culminated till here. Rook takes check, rook takes, and this rook controls this d file. This is very important here. Rook b1 attacks the knight. Knight d6, and now if white plays bishop takes c5, this wasn't the game, this is the variation, then knight b5 looks very annoying. No entry zone for this, and if you play, let's say, a4, then c3 is hanging. So he plays a4 first. Artemiev plays a4 first to stop this knight b5 and still keep attacking. Knight b7 is not possible, the rook is controlling that. So this was a very cool strategy. Knight c4, and now bishop takes c5. So this was very important. The move orders is quite important, and also on a4 the pawn, a2 the pawn was hanging by the bishop. And here probably the best move would have been to just play h6 to secure this rook, make this rook active to attacking this bishop, or to play rook e2, creating more tensions in the position. He plays a5. He was worried about this pawn, so he plays a5. And if, let's say, white plays rook b7 in this position, but then h6 and rook a7, the knight defends this pawn really well, and with the rook controlling this open file, still it will give a lot more attacking chances. So here comes a very good strategic move in this position by Vladislav. This rook was annoying, controlling this d file. So what does he do? Before playing the rook, he plays bishop e7, brilliant move. And let's say if rook moves here, then the back rank is vulnerable. That's very important. So rook cannot leave the back rank. So rook c8. Now rook b7. And what does this do? This not only takes this open file from this rook, but bishop e7 is also ensures that there is no king f8 kind of nonsense. And what will he do? He will play either bishop b3 or d3 to eliminate this knight and to create more pressure on this a pawn. And in the meantime, this c pawn is also looking very loose. So chances are that he might be able to pick up the c pawn as well. What a beautiful strategy by Vladislav. h6 to give king this square so that this rook can move. King to f1, so he's trying to centralize this king. And there's another idea in this position is to bring this king to d3 and to play bishop b3 to eliminate this knight, which is defending this a5 pawn. So beautiful strategy. c5, but I think this is all in desperation. Vladislav's attack is way too strong. Rook b5. There we go. Two pieces are attacking this. And there's already a threat to play bishop b3 or king here. See, knight to a3 attacks the rook and the bishop, but there is this intermediate check and bishop b3. And if you play knight c4, then rook b5 is also coming. So Harikrishna took. Rook takes, attacking the knight, so knight c4 and rook b5. Now this bishop is in there, but now you have this king to hassle this knight. He plays rook c7 because rook d6 wasn't possible. Bishop takes c5. The pawn is gone. f6. King to e2. There we go, the plan. Rook d7. Now bishop comes to e3. So now his plan is to play rook c5 and to eliminate this knight, and then to pick the pawn on a5. So he plays rook c7, maybe in desperation. King d3. This knight has to move. The knight takes the bishop. F takes. Rook d7 check is all desperation. King c2. The rook cannot check this king any longer. King g6. Now rook takes a5. This is a mop-up job now. After king g5, g3 stops any king's invasion because all these squares are controlled. He plays h5 to create some breakthrough on the king side. Rook d5 offering the trade of rooks, and after rook c7, a5, Harikrishna resigns the game, and clearly the rook is defended and this king cannot come to defend this promotion. And with the help of this king and also this another pawn, one of the pawns will eventually lead up to queen. So that was my favorite game 1, and my favorite game 2 was between Harikrishna and Magnus. So we will jump to move number 30 in this position, and here Magnus plays bishop a4. Before this move everything was quite level. It turned out to be a little bit topsy-turvy, but here if Harikrishna had played an accurate move, he would have been winning in this position. Unfortunately, Harikrishna plays h4 in this position, and which was a mistake. So can you find out the winning move in this position for white? Well, if you found it out, brilliant. And if you just want to improve your tactical vision, the move would have been rook takes a4. Exchange sacrifice looks like it, but no, this actually wins a compensation. After knight takes, queen a7, this double attack, and if you play rook b4, that doesn't help because queen a5 will eventually pick up this knight, or if you don't move the rook, then rook, and this is completely winning for white. Rook against bishop and knight, this would have been winning position. But here after bishop a4, Harikrishna plays h4, and still Carlsen doesn't see the opportunity and he plays h5, and again Harikrishna misses this rook takes a4 and he plays bishop to e2 in this position. So it's quite curious that how can a player of those stature can make these kind of mistakes. So anyway, we come to another critical moment in this game, and we jump to move 68 by Magnus. Magnus has played queen b6 to c5, as you can see, and this is also a critical moment. And this is a all queen endgame with Carlsen, as you can see, has an extra passed pawn, but white has an active queen and also this pawn as well, although this is an isolated pawn of some sorts, but not an isolated pawn at the moment, but still an isolated pawn of some sorts, as I mentioned. And again, this was another critical moment in the game. Obviously, you don't want to trade queens because this passer will be deadly dangerous. In this position, Harikrishna plays queen g8. Well, I will give you some time to analyze what could be the best move in this position. Well, the best move that could be played in this position would be queen to b8. And the point is that whenever there are queens on the board, it is essential to check it from these two levels, so that this king doesn't get a safe square. For instance, if you play king d7, then white has to play king g1 to keep a little bit safety. Queen c1 check, king g2. After queen c8, you can even play queen b2 in this position to secure this pawn and possibly try to play queen f6. And even though white is a pawn down, still cannot find any concrete plan after this. But after queen c5, Harikrishna plays queen g8, and remember, Harikrishna was running very low on time here, and queen g8 is somewhat being a little bit passive even on the active position to trying defending this pawn. And the best way that Carlsen could have continued is to play queen d5 check, and again after king g1, queen d1 check, king g2, queen f3 check. Black queen would be really active. Let's say after g3, f takes, queen takes g3 check, and this pawn will also go, and this will be a clear winning endgame for black. However, after queen g8, Carlsen returns the compliment, plays queen f5, and this was another blunder. And then the game continued for some moves. Queen b8 with the same intention to give these checks. Queen e4 check, king comes to g1, and Carlsen starts to push his passer. Queen c1 check, king to f8, queen d8 check, king to g7, and this is a very good strategy by Carlsen to escape these checks through the back. As I already mentioned, it was in queen endgames. It's very much possible to create some perpetual check possibilities through these back checks. Queen f6, king g8, queen d8 check, and once king goes to h7, you can see that this queen doesn't have any more checks, and with this queen and this pawn doing tremendous job for creating a lot of tempo moves for black. He plays queen f6, but now it's black's turn. Queen g6 offering the trade of queens, and the king rolling from here to here ensures that this king doesn't have a lot of checks. So queen f4, keeping that pawn, or I should say retaining the pawn. Queen to e6, queen to d4, king g6, and this is very interesting moment, because again he could have played, let's say, queen f4 in this position. Maybe not easy, maybe it's still Carlsen would still have some chances in that position, but here he plays king f1, and he underestimated that Carlsen can actually take this pawn, and now he's 2 pawns up in this position. He thought that after queen g7 check, king f5, queen h8, he has to do something, because this black queen doesn't have good checks. For instance, if you play queen a6, then king g2, and how can you defend the pawn on h5? If you go here, then this check and so on. But here Carlsen plays, I would say, a superb move. He dumps the pawn on h5, and he's using his king to push this pawn down the board, and also preparing queen to f5 in that process. Just a brilliant stuff. King d3, brilliant move again, and the best move I think here should have been to play queen g5, but things were already gone by then. He plays queen h7 check, and this was devastating, because after queen e4, he's simply running out of checks, and the pawn along with the combination of king is really powerful. King c2, after queen c6 check, queen c4 blocking this check and giving check like this, exchanging queens, and white is totally lost. Here Harikrishna resigned the game. So another favorite game, and this was the game between Magnus with white and Dubov with black, and this was a very nice game, and included lot of combinations. So anyway, forget about that, just let's go through the game. So Carlsen opens with d4, knight f6, knight f3, c6, h3, d6. So when you see this move h3, so your instincts tell that you should always stay calm, stay positive, and also stay true to your basics. That's what the point is. Maybe d5 would have been another alternative, just to counter the flank attack with the center, or maybe h4 if he had played. Still d5 would have been a better option. So he goes for this London system type of structure, e3, g6, and Dubov is going for the King's Indian style of structure, and which is very good indeed. As I said, always staying true to your systems. Bishop e2, bishop to g7, both sides castling, c4, white taking the control center. Normally you see c3, but he's very much about the system, so he plays c4. Knight to e4, queen to c2, and e5 by Dubov, dumping the knight but also taking the bishop. So let's see what happens if he takes the knight first. Obviously you don't want to take, because then not even pawn takes, but rather queen takes would be better. So you first play knight f6, an intermediate move. Once the queen goes to c2, only now should you take the pawn on f4. And if you, let's say, capture, then knight h5 eventually picks the pawn anyway. g3 is not possible because bishop f3. And if you, let's say, play queen d2 or queen c1, then queen f6 puts more pressure on this undefendable pawn. So that would be pretty much okay. But however, you don't have to take the pawn. You can play e4 and still everything would be fine in this position. Structure wise, center wise, white controls a lot of center squares, and it looks positionally well for white. Maybe a playable continuation, but still. In rapid chess you don't consider too many candidate moves, so you always stick to what comes to your mind. So after e5, he tucks the bishop back to h2 instead of capturing the knight, and now that knight which was attacked on e4 goes to g5, knight b to d2, meeting the capture with this knight capture. There we go. And now rook to e8, putting more defenders to this pawn. And now rook f to d1, placing the queen. Not only that, but also potentially placing this knight into a pin. Queen comes to e7, rook a comes to c1, so putting more pressure by Magnus. E takes d, and this was another critical moment in this position, because here this was the moment that Carlsen didn't play well. He took the pawn on d4, which was, I think, a decisive mistake, or I should say not decisive but a crucial mistake, positional mistake. He should have captured this pawn with the knight, and once the knight captures, and if bishop captures, then rook captures, not pawn captures, and we will see what happens because this pawn captures. He plays e takes d4, and it is another pretty interesting situation. So the bishop is hanging. What happens if you play queen takes e2 first? Well, actually this is a blunder, because after rook e1, see the skewer, the undefended rook. If you take the queen, then rook takes e8, check, and once you block, rook takes d2, clear exchange up, no development on the queen side from black side, pressure on d6, the bishop is pinned. King g7 won't help either, because then rooks will double, and this is hopeless. So it's very important after e takes d4 to play bishop h6 first, and that's a brilliant move. So what happens after rook b1 in this position? Well, now black is winning, because bishop was attacking the rook here, because after queen takes e2, you can actually, if white plays rook e1, then you actually can take the queen, and the queen is not defended, which it was when the rook was on c1. That's the difference. So it would be, whoa, super bonanza. But Carlsen doesn't allow this. After bishop h6, he sacrifices the exchange, but still, in the form of this underdevelopment on the queen side, he still has the compensation in the position. And probably he should have played d5 Dubov, with the ideas of once this captures or captures happen, then you can play even knight b6 to relieve this bishop to make, let's say, coming here, or maybe in a dream world to come here, and so on. but he plays queen f6. This was not a good option. Bishop f4. Knight comes to f8 to relieve this bishop. And now bishop comes to g5. So Carlsen is also having some strategies up his sleeve. We will see then. Okay, now queen is attacked and there aren't any good squares to move. So queen has to compromise itself to h8. Maybe he can play queen g7 as well, but it will be same. And now Carlsen takes the opportunity to play d5 himself before black does it. So after captures, then comes on again knight d7. So knight has to now take one of these squares because these squares look really strong, vacated. But the point is, this pawn is on a dark square, and black doesn't have a dark square bishop in this case, which means that after bishop f4, this pawn can be a little bit vulnerable. And that's not all. Knight d7 is also played to stop this bishop b5 thing attacking the rook. So there we go, bishop b5 by Magnus. So he plays queen g7. Now his idea is to play either f6 or h6. Not h6 at the moment because there would be double pressure on this square. So bishop h6, queen to f6, and Carlsen here plays rook to d4, and his idea is to play rook f4 and knight g5, which we see a6, rook to f4, queen to e7, bishop takes. Black is still the exchange up, but white has superb initiative, and this underdeveloped rook, this somewhat passive bishop, no activity whatsoever. After bishop g5, rook a to c8, bishop is attacking queen, rook is attacking the queen. And here Carlsen should have played queen takes c8, and after bishop takes e7, rook takes e7. This is roughly equal endgame, and maybe more chances, there could be more chances to white because of this passive, again as I said, passive bishop, but then weakness can be sorted out by playing b5 and so on. The position will still be equal. However, in this position, Carlsen makes a terrible blunder. Queen to a1, what the hell was he thinking? Maybe he was thinking to play something like bishop h6 and deliver this long range mate. I do not know, it's still puzzling. Also could be playing queen f6 whatsoever. It allows black queen to invade b3. He continues his intentions, but what's the plan after rook c2? Threatening mate like this. Bishop h4, and now Dubov was certainly worried about this queen jumping here. The bishop actually defends the mate. f2. So the best move here should have been rook takes a2. But let's see what happens if queen f6. Well, actually black is fine. Queen d1 check, king h2, and after queen takes d5, the queen defends the square, and everything is fine. But after bishop h4, Dubov plays rook b2, which is still not too bad, but it somewhat loses the initiative. King h2, queen to c2, rook to c4, the rook attacks the queen, queen comes to b1, so he is hoping to exchange queens, which he does. And now rook c7 attacking the bishop, so Magnus is looking really desperate. Bishop comes to f5, the only square, and you can play rook takes b7. Carlsen first plays bishop f6 to stop any nonsense. A lot of nonsense is involved by playing this and this. I would say not nonsense, but a lot of witty tactics. He plays h6, and here again he should have taken the pawn, but instead he plays knight d2, rook d1 attacking the knight and also the pawn on d5. So knight has to move, rook takes d5, a lot of pawns are chopped off, bishop e6, and making sure that everything is defended. Rook to a7, targeting the pawn. Rook comes to d1, and again he makes this mistake by playing knight b2, attacking, because rook d2 attacks this pawn and this knight, but also this knight is defended somewhat. King g3, g5, rook takes on a6, rook c8, so preparing rook c2, and this is somewhat unstoppable at the moment. He plays h4, g takes h4, bishop cannot take because bishop is overloaded. King goes to f3, rooks double on second, and after knight a4, rook takes f2, loses the bishop on f6, and here Magnus resigns the game. So what a dramatic day one this was from Chessable Masters tournament, another tournament in Magnus Invitational Tour, and this was pretty interesting. So the day one is over, and after day one in Group A, Artemiev stands top at 3.5, Dubov is at number 2 with 3, Magnus is at 2.5, Nakamura is at 2.5, Grishchuk is at 2, and Harikrishna had a very terrible day. He lost 3 games today, and he almost lost to Grishchuk in the last round, but eventually he won that game. A very tough day for the for one of the Indian stars. So that was from today. I hope you liked the video. I hope you liked my analysis. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Cheers. Bye.